Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome back to the woods here for another Minecraft, hopefully, exciting discussion. Look at these beautiful wildflowers, although I think those are what's making lots of people sneeze. I think that's goldenrod. Anyway, behind me is another beaver pond, yay. And so, yes, so my name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and remember my role here is to help people become the boss of their brains, to become the boss of your brain, and synonymous with becoming the boss of your thoughts, to control your thinking. It's just so important. And I don't, oh, by the way, I think I've been watching other YouTubers. I was told I could identify that way right now by my young adult children. And so apparently it's supposed to say, hey, tap dance on the like button, because there's some kind of algorithm that'll let, if we are able to get these videos out there, more and more people can see them. So subscribe and like if you can. Oh, and also, I've done a couple of TED Talks on these topics, and they will be in the description below. So today's topic is just so important because I don't think people understand the dangers of autopilot. So today we're going to talk about changing your story. It's just so important. And again, oftentimes we say, oh, I was just on autopilot, so sorry. I was zoning out, so sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, because it's zoning out and autopilot, whatever you want to call it, is such a thief of life minutes, just a thief of life minutes. Doesn't mean sometimes on a, Sunday we don't zone out a little bit, but when it's a habit, it's not so good. And, and so the idea of changing your story, just like most of what we've talked about in Minecraft, takes good old-fashioned grit. It takes effort. And so, many of us have been kind of running this narrative of whatever it is that's your story, through our heads for years and years and years, even when it's long since over. And so what I'm talking about here is maybe certain patterns that we've labeled ourselves with, with not being good at this and all the ways we're not enough, and family members chiming in and labeling maybe, and the world or whoever, kind of confirming a lot of that. Then we start to confirm it ourselves. That's the worst part, because the unconscious drives the bus. And when that stuff starts to really get in our hard drive, it's going to be a heavier lift to let it go. So the unconscious thing is important. So I think giving credit where credit is due, because Freud gets such a bad rap. And though I wouldn't exactly call myself a Freud groupie, he had a couple important things to say. A lot of his work is outdated. And, and he was very focused on sex, hence the cigar is just a cigar sometimes thing. But I also don't think it's good to throw the baby out with the bathwater. He did most of all of what he did without the current technology, obviously, at a time when a lot of people didn't have educations, and actually many people weren't even literate. So anyway, even though he, smoked enough cocaine to knock over a rather large horse, and he I've also had a very small sample size with kind of a heterogeneous group. No matter what, I don't think anyone disputes the fact of the importance of his discovery of the unconscious mind. His discovery of the unconscious mind, because it is powerful. And think about this stuff going on. 2021, there is so much out there becoming more conscious. And I love Aaron Doughty. I think that's how you say his last name. He's a YouTuber that his whole thing is expanding people's consciousness. I mean, here in 2021, we're really building off that foundation that Freud brought about years ago. So in order to do this heavy lift, we've had a story going on for so long. We've really got to work at it a little bit. And so with myself, for example, I had this story rolling around for years. I mean, ever since I was a kid and a teenager, and it's sort of the perfect storm with my ADHD, being in the fast mind club, as we say. So the issues I've talked about before, also in my TED Talk, I had a difficulty for a long time, like with impulse spending, and not the same as shopping addiction, which I addressed in my TED Talk. Not the same when you're in the fast mind club, because I didn't really ever plan to go shopping, or I didn't like online and all that stuff. It was just when it was in front of me, like I was at the mall or whatever, and it was bad. And I got a lot of negative for it as a grown up, just lots of shaming stuff, and it was terrible. And I realized later on, even though I've been long since over it for about 2 decades now. I was still running that drill through my head. I'd find myself in the car or in the store where I don't even care anymore, right? And just running that through my head, and I'm like, hey, wait, that's this, like this. It's like, when a DVD gets on repeat loop or something. It was just so ridiculous. And I also really reflected on it because, and this may be, most people have a story, at least one. And there's a lot of good stories too. We're talking about the ones that are no longer working for us, and that's the one mine that I'm talking about is just no longer real. And I realized, in addition to the wiring, because out of all the ADHD symptoms, and I do have all of them except for the procrastination one, we talked about that, and that one I chalk up to being the proud prodigy of 2 alcoholic parents because, I just learned early on that I had to get stuff done myself and that sort of thing. But by far, my biggest struggle has been with the impulsive component. I'm wired that way. You want it all yesterday, and it's very hard. And I've learned as an adult to just hit the pause button a little bit. But honestly, it's still there. So it's still, a constant. I'm a work in progress. And after reflecting, on this as an adult, I realized there's that, my actual wiring, which is genetic, which, I can't change any more than having brown eyes or being 5 feet tall. And then there's also the reality that I wasn't realizing until, I was an adult, that though some of this was just genetic executive stuff, there was also a component of a real, shame-based, because I was shame-based for a long time before I learned to work through it, growing up in a very addicted household with two alcoholic parents, and some mental illness issues and things like that, and a lot of abuse and stuff. I just call it what it is. Neglect and abuse. People say neglect, it's really the same thing. It's all abuse, right? And so realizing that later, that in addition to the shame base, there's also some deprivation based stuff that went into that need to fill up that wound or that hole with stuff. And then to overdo it at Christmas time with the Fab Five, as I call them, the kids are now young adults, and my way back when, our oldest is almost 30. This is a long time ago. I would kind of overdo it at Christmas, which a lot of parents do. For me, I didn't really get it until way later that was deep. The overdoing. Obviously just the sun rises and sets on all 5 of them for both my husband and I, and it was deeper than that because I was trying to put something back. Not just materially. It was an outward expression of just trying to, give them everything I had and be the mother I didn't have and all that kind of thing. And just it was coming from a wounded spot. So if you put that together with, my genetics and my executive functioning things that are just is what it is kind of thing, it was a perfect storm. And add in a rather large dose of shame from an addictive family is really a perfect storm. And so the point is, I hung on to that without realizing it. I kind of knew it's been long since over. I don't even think about it anymore, or not at all, which is why I'm sharing it so freely, because it's kind of like, there's no meat on those bones anymore. It's just like a pile of fragile, broken bones. Like it's just like a pile of nothing. It doesn't have any power at all over me because it's so done. But you realize that even if it's long since over, until we consciously release it and say to ourselves, this is not my story anymore. This is not my story anymore. It still kind of lingers. And it's so important to change our story. And it's also important to know how the brain works, and I'm all about that, because habits, contrary to what people think, are not broken, they shift. And so, in order to let it go, in order to really let it go, it's human, that's why I'm breathing a little weird. The bugs are not as bad as I thought, though. I have to say they would be, because we're going to get a thunderstorm very soon. In order to let it go, we have to kind of change. Deer fly on my finger, sorry. We have to kind of change it, shift it. So habits don't break, they shift. And so that story with the money and impulse stuff and buying and all that, long since over, I've had to shift out of that and actually consciously say it. Sometimes I say it right where we are right now. That is not my story anymore. Because sometimes I'll just be, just walking through somewhere. I get dragged into a store with somebody. I couldn't care less. Don't have any desire to do any of that anymore. And I'm just saying, wait. It's anti-shame campaign here. You haven't done anything wrong. you're over this, you don't care, your story has changed. And I have to consciously say that to myself. When I'm out in the woods, I say it out loud. I say it out loud. This is not my story anymore, because in order to let it go, we have to shift out of that internal dialogue that's become such an automatic feedback loop of, toxic internal dialogue. It's taken on a life of its own for many of us. And of course, I'm a fabulous 56, so, once you've lived a little and you're in the midlifer zone, probably that's been on repeat loop for a really long time. So it can be a bit of a heavy lift in the beginning, but trust me that once we consciously talk back and fact check, like, why did I just get that sinking shame feeling when I'm just standing in the middle of a cocktail party or something? Like, you have to question that because you overheard somebody 3 conversations over who said something that brought you back to, whatever shaming moment. And then fact check. This isn't going on for me anymore. I can let it go because I've shifted and changed my story. My story is different now. And it's amazing once we kind of detach from that, how it all comes together. And with my example, I don't know if I want to say ironically, I guess it's ironically, I don't know. But, the whole money thing is really just a side effect of everything else we do, right? So what's also amazing, and it's really wild, is that once we stop all the focus on whatever it is that's in our way, right? For me, it was the money thing for years. We stop focusing and, oh no, I did it again. Oh no, I spent this and now I'm stressed out to, pay the electric bill, whatever. Once we're past all that, we're not all focusing on, oh, how am I gonna, make more money? And then it really kind of just disappears, because it is, at least with money, it is a side effect of everything else we do. And just shifting to the focus of, chasing down everything that just excites us, everything that we value, everything that we stand for, and the rest all comes into place. And that is difficult to do when we are running this feedback loop that's really old and outdated through our heads. What a great note to end on. Okay, this is Kimberly Quinn signing off from Northern Vermont in the woods. Have a mindful day.